Hey, everybody, we are here today. I'm so glad to be able to talk here with Jeff Payne. Jeff has a really cool YouTube channel called Sorta Healthy. And I discovered this a while ago. Some people at PPT and I kind of take his URLs of his videos and we pass them back and forth quite a bit. How you doing, Jeff?
Good. Thanks for passing those URLs around, by the way. I appreciate it. Very helpful.
Absolutely.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. We really enjoy your stuff. I should mention, for those who don't know, I run PPT's clinical research department. So we do a lot of just trying to stay in touch with what are clients thinking, what's going on in the whole climate of exercise science, what's some of the deep level research and all the stuff in between. And what I thought was very unique in coming across Jeff's videos is that he really runs the gambit on, he's talking mainly in his videos to personal trainers, but he's talking to people who are considering a career in training. He's talking to entry-level trainers, and he's talking to very advanced trainers too. And that's, Jeff, what I found just super interesting is that we deal with all of the above, and you have such a unique way of targeting your videos towards those different kinds of trainers.
Yeah, thanks. Like I was saying right before we started recording here, I'm glad that you picked up on that because that's absolutely what I've been going for. Yeah, to me, it's kind of like they're almost three separate demographics, right? People who are thinking about becoming a trainer, people who have maybe just started training, and then people who've been doing it for a little while. So, yeah, I'm just trying to kind of cater to, that entire group. And it kind of keeps it fresh for me as a creator because I found that, in the beginning, I was just creating, I think, content for more advanced trainers. But it got kind of boring. And I kind of realized like for every advanced trainer there's probably a good handful of trainers who are new to the field and they probably need more help. So yeah, that's definitely what I've been going for.
I'll tell you, I'm going to show my age here. I got my first certification in 1995 or something. I think it's 1995. And my gosh, this was way before YouTube and really even before we had much internet. I could have really used your channel. You would have saved me. And if anyone watching this is considering being a personal trainer or is a new trainer, I will tell you, y'all have it very lucky now because Jeff's content, had this been around for me back then in the mid 90s, it would have saved me. I mean, I'm not kidding. You would have saved me so much trouble and so much trial and error. And even some of the simple things you say that maybe aren't, I mean, in a day and age now where there's a lot of advice out there that's so readily available, I really think it's just super helpful that you can just say something simple that might steer a trainer in another direction. And by the way, I know most of our audience are not interested in becoming trainers. Most of our audience are clients of PPT or maybe they're considering becoming clients. But I want you all to know before you tune out and think, hey, it sounds like this is trainer talk. I think the value here is going to be for all of you to hear more about the industry. And we're certainly going to talk recommendations for you all as well. So this isn't going to be all about what personal trainers should do, but I do want to start there a little bit because there's so much value, I think, for a client in understanding what the role is of a trainer and what they can find in a trainer. Don't you think, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very misunderstood industry from the trainers themselves, but certainly from the clients too. So absolutely. Yeah, I think it's good to kind of touch on that first.
You say that in one of your videos too. Can you elaborate a little bit? What do you think are, because you say that and a million things come to my mind, but what's going on in your mind when you say a misunderstood industry? What are some of the biggest ways that this industry is misunderstood?
I think personal training, well, I can tell you from a trainer's perspective, I think people think that when they start doing this job, they're going to be like, working out with their clients. They're going to be just doing cool, glamorous stuff all day long. And really, it's an accountability job. It's an accountability and customer service job where you're helping someone to achieve a goal, most often weight loss. And yeah, it's not glamorous. It's a hard job. It's a rewarding job for sure. But yeah, and then I think from the client's perspective, I just think most clients have no idea what personal training really is, to be honest with you. I've heard all kinds of different, guesses, but it seems like it's just a pretty misunderstood thing in general.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Here's a great point to make for people listening who are clients or who are considering being clients, or maybe people who have had a trainer in the past. What I find is there are a lot of people who think that a trainer's job is to work them into the ground until they can't physically take it anymore. Have you encountered that, Jeff?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah, and it's not our job to do that at all. It's our job to help them achieve their goal, right? So I'm sure you would agree that, working someone into the ground is not the best way to help almost anybody achieve their goal, right? We have to hold them accountable. We have to most often, deal with nutrition as much as we can while staying in our scope of practice. But yeah, me beating someone into the ground doesn't really help anyone at the end of the day. So yeah, for sure. You're right. Right on the money with that.
I could, yeah. And it's funny because there are people who feel that, who just think I mean, if that were the case, we wouldn't go to school for this. We wouldn't need a certification. Anybody can, I mean, you can get a kid to come over who's 13 years old, no background in fitness, and they can just say, now do all the push-ups you can do. And then you do as many as you can. Now do this. I mean, that obviously would be pointless to hire someone to do that. That's silly. And then on the other side, though, and tell me if you've encountered this. I'd love to hear any stories you have about this. Then there's the other kind of client who will say things like, "Oh no, I can't do that." And meanwhile, we're not coming up with our exercise prescription out of nowhere. We're conducting a field test. We're finding out that okay, it is safe for this person to do. Let's say the pull-up test. We determine how much they can pull up or pull down. Okay, great. So now we can use the math and figure out what they should do after a given period of rest. And then sometimes they'll say, "Oh no, I can't do that." Or no, that might bother my back. Or and I feel like, well, wait, now you're going too far the other way, because now if we just listen to what you're comfortable with only, you're never gonna. I mean, this is why you're not succeeding, right?
Right. Oh, all the time. Yeah. I mean, you get clients from all different ends of that spectrum, right? You get clients who are used to pushing themselves, working out pretty intensely. Maybe they were, I don't know, a college athlete at some point in the past. But then you also get people that haven't worked out a day in their life, and here they are coming to see you at 50, 60 years old. And they're pretty unsure of their abilities. They don't really know what their body is capable of. So yeah, no, definitely. I get clients like that all the time. And I think the important thing is just to reassure them and start them light and then just gradually improve the difficulty from there.
Yeah, and that's so important. I think too. You mentioned athleticism or college athletes, and I always think too that someone might think. And I've gotten this so many times, and I've worked with so many clients over the years. I've had people who they'll say, "Well, this is what I used to do," and I'm thinking, right, but your physiology is totally different now.
Yeah.
And then also, there's a very big difference, don't you think, between training for a particular sport and training for general fitness, longevity, injury prevention, going into life as a healthier person?
Oh, it's entirely different. Yeah. I mean, when you're training for a specific sport or an event, like, you have like a very clear target, right? But that's not always the case when you get a client in. Maybe they want to lose some weight. Maybe they want to lower their blood pressure, whatever their goals may be. But yeah, it's totally different. Plus, it's usually them at a later stage of life. So, what was once maybe a good workout for them then might not be a great workout for them now. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very interesting. So again, you've got a whole channel, which is, well, when did you start your channel? I know it's been a while.
Yeah, so it's funny that you mentioned that. So I started it initially all the way back in 2015. And basically I would upload here and there, and I kind of started doing just random stuff. I did like a training session way long time ago, back in 2015. I did an elliptical, high intensity interval video somewhere around that same time. And then I just got really, really busy with work. I was managing, a business, and I was just too busy training clients to upload to YouTube. So I gave it up for a good few years. but I kind of would still upload here and there. But I never had any real traction until about a year ago. And that's because COVID hit and I had all this free time all of a sudden. So this was pretty much in the back of my mind. It was something that I knew that I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to teach in some capacity. But I was just too busy training clients to do it. So I took full advantage of having a few months off for COVID, and I just gave it my best shot, and the rest is history.
So that's amazing. It's kind of a nice thing about YouTube and social media is that when the timing is right in your life and you can juggle it, you can jump in, and then when you jump out, you jump out. You know, sometimes you're too busy. You know, and that I guess the point I wanted to make was obviously anybody can jump over to the Sorta Healthy channel and they can get all kinds of great advice, especially for those who are aspiring personal trainers or current personal trainers. But what do you, so it's kind of a funny question to ask you, but what would you say are the main pieces of advice, if you could choose like two broad major pieces of advice that you think are the most important for trainers and maybe even something that, again, could help our clients as well? What do you think the major points are?
For trainers, I think it would be go in with an open mind and be ready for a grind, honestly. Because that's what it is. The job is certainly a grind. You're working weird hours. It's really hard in the beginning to get booked up, and that's just the way of it. For just general people, are we talking like health and fitness advice, or just kind of, because you don't want my life? That's probably not that good. Health and fitness advice, pretty decent. I think everything in moderation is usually the best piece of advice, because I think when people stray too far from that, they have a tough time sustaining it long term. So, I mean, it's kind of boring. It's not a very cool thing to say. It's not in vogue right now, like some of the other things. But I think ultimately, everything in moderation, just when it comes to all things in life. And I think consistency is probably the most important thing to achieving any goals, whether it's you're a personal trainer or whether you're someone who's trying to lose weight, or anything, really. Consistency is king.
So stepping away from trainers a bit more here and getting a little further down that road about what clients can do, would you say, and I know there's plenty of stats on this, but let me just ask your own personal belief. Would you say most people who do exercise, and if they're exercising consistently, the average person who exercises maybe 2 or more times a week, are they getting to their goals?
Not if they're not modifying their diet as well.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think exercise on its own is enough. I wish it were. This job would be a lot easier if it were. But no, I've had plenty of clients who were unwilling to change their dietary habits, and they could be working out 5 days a week. They're probably still going to either not lose any weight at all, or it's going to be very slow to come off.
Yeah. It's funny. We rarely, much like what you said earlier about kind of coming in and out of YouTube a bit, when we have time, we get videos out. When we don't have time, our YouTube channel has sat dormant for a long time as well. Yeah. And one note, I've got this sitting in the studio where I shoot some of the videos that I do, is I keep toying with the idea of, you always hear people say you can't out-train a bad diet, right?
Yep.
You know, and I always think, well, it depends how bad the diet is. And I guess on one hand, like I've had people who are so stringent that they'll say, oh, I would love this little dessert, this little sundae, but I don't do it because I'm afraid I'm going to get fat. And I'll look and I'll see it's like maybe 200 calories. Right. And I'll say, well, you know, it's funny. I mean, look, 200 calories you can burn off in like 20 minutes. I mean, that's not really a very big deal. So
I think oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
And then I'll chime in. Go ahead, finish up.
Well, you get the idea. Just that it's like, in a way, maybe you can if the bad diet is only so bad. But then again, that's going to be a slippery slope, right? That's probably
Yeah, I think it's definitely a gray area, right? I think if we're looking at the average person, their diet is worse than, just having that 200 calorie dessert. Mm-hmm. But I have clients who are exactly like what you're describing, and I tell them to eat the dessert. I say, eat the dessert. Let's get a little activity on some of these other days. I mean, you got to live your life, right? I mean, you got to have fun here and there. You got to have dessert here and there. So I think there's wiggle room, more so for some people than others, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where, again, I'll go back to the same kind of example before. There are people who want a trainer to work them into the ground, and there are people who think that they should never even feel it. You know, I side note, I did once have a client literally put the weights down in the middle of a set. And I said, what happened? She said, I'm really starting to feel it. And I said, well, that's what you're supposed to do. We're adapting. And she said, well, no. I don't want to do that. So there's the people on both sides of it, on both extremes. And I think it's the same too with nutrition. I've seen people who are literally, they're eating 5,000, 6,000 calories a day and their metabolism is less than half that.
Right.
And they'll say, no, I don't really have an eating problem or a nutrition problem. And I'm saying, well, you do. Your body composition's high. There's every warning sign in the world. Obviously you do. Let's address it. Let's fix it. And then there are other people who body composition is great. It is well in the ideal. Everything's wonderful. And they almost live paranoid in that, like, oh, I got to be careful. I've got to be so careful. And I think, well, no, you can, like you said, you want to live your life a little bit. And I feel like you're unnecessarily stressing yourself out, which is also bad, and I feel like at the end of the day, is our job really to make people fit, or is it just to get their life better?
I let our job be somewhat dictated by what their goals are when they come in. And in fact, I think that's the entirety of our job, right? Is we are supposed to help them achieve the goals that they're helping us, or that they want to achieve. We can't go outside of our scope, right? So we have somewhat limited ability to change someone's diet. But if someone comes in and they want to lose weight, I'm going to try and narrow that goal down a little bit further. How much weight do you want to lose? Are you trying to lose that weight for a specific event? But no, I let them dictate, where we go with it, because I try and keep it as customized as possible. But overall, I think more people should be focused on general health. It shouldn't just be weight loss, I think there's more. I mean, I could get someone to lose weight eating Twinkies that they're going to be terribly unhealthy when they get there, but we could still make it happen. So yeah, I definitely think that from my perspective, there should be a more holistic approach, maybe.
That's interesting. It's funny you just said that about the Twinkies too, because one of the questions that we often ask new trainers who come to us is, can a client lose weight even without healthy food?
Right.
And obviously, like what you just said, of course you can. By just cutting your calories and exercising more, you can lose weight. And you can even burn fat too, and not just, weight as a scale weight, which can involve other tissue and water weight and such as well. I'm amazed at how many personal trainers, and again, this is why I think your channel is so important. I'm amazed at how many personal trainers give this quick answer, like it's the right answer in the ether, but it's the wrong answer in terms of reality and science. They will say, no, you got to eat healthy. It's got to be whole foods. It's got to be, organic. And I'm thinking, whole foods and organic are what you want to make your engine run properly and cleaner blood, longer life, everything. Got it. But for the sake of just losing body fat, it's really a calories game of calories in, calories out, more than it's which type of food did I have? And then certainly whether it's organic or not, and the chemicals, that's not really going to equate much to fat loss. Right? Is that pretty much what you are saying?
100%. Yes. Somewhere along the line, it became controversial to say that weight loss is determined by calories in and calories out. And I don't fully understand why, but I think I partially do. There's just so much misinformation out there. Some people will tell you the only way you can lose weight is, eliminating carbohydrates, or, I don't know, eating paleo or whatever the new trend may be, intermittent fasting. Some of those things may have some value, but ultimately the only thing that really matters for weight loss, is calories in, calories out. There are things that can affect that equation. Like if you have a hormonal problem, it definitely tips that balance not in your favor. But it's still calories in, calories out. And yeah, I think when it comes to general health, obviously what you eat is hugely important. If you eat junk food all the time, even if you're in a caloric deficit, you're still going to be a very unhealthy person. So yeah, and it's good to hear that you see that, because yeah, we're trying to spread that message. Unfortunately, I think it's a lot easier to tell people, it's a lot easier to become popular if you tell people what they want to hear instead of telling them the truth. So unfortunately, truth telling doesn't get you as many views. It doesn't do it far online as telling someone what they want to hear. So yeah, I think that's part of the problem.
I could not agree more. That is so spot on, is that people, at the end of the day, I'll tell you this. When I was a young kid, 15 or so, or 14, my buddy and I were very Beavis and Butthead. We would go to the gym, we'd walk around, and we'd read the instructions, and we'd ask every personal trainer questions, but we knew nothing, and we were getting nowhere. We were putting all this time in, and nothing was changing physiologically, at least nothing you could see or feel. And we'd ask the trainers all kinds of questions. Should I do bicep curls this way or that way? Or should I stand this or sit here or whatever? We had every question in the world. The trainers we liked were the ones who just give a short answer. Just got to do this, got to do this. The ones we didn't really like were the ones that say, well, Jeff, it really depends. It depends on if you're doing this and if your goal is this. If it got to be too wordy, we were kind of like, oh, I guess I don't know what to do with all this. I'm this little kid who's not really thinking. I just need a simple answer. Looking back, especially as I went on and did my PhD and everything, I realized more and more the trainers giving the long answers weren't going to get as many clients. Clients didn't want to sign up with someone who couldn't give them a definite plan. But those are the ones who really knew their stuff.
Yeah.
The trainers who were just telling, you get what I'm saying. So I think it's interesting, hearing your point of view there, that, yeah, people don't really want the truth so much. It sounds like the truth is not, they kind of want someone to just reinforce what they're already thinking.
Yeah, they want someone to tell them what they want to hear. So, I get clients all the time that say, I can't lose weight if I eat after 6 p.m. at night. And I say, why? Why is that going to prevent you from losing weight? And they don't ever have an explanation. But yeah, it's just things like that they get stuck in someone's head. They read it one time in a magazine, or they see some influencer talking about it, and it just gets stuck with them. And I think, unfortunately, that is just the state of nutrition and personal training right now.
Yeah, I agree very much.
Yeah.
So what would you say is in talking to clients now, or potential clients, what would you say is the most, maybe the worst myth that's out there, or whether it's the one that you hear the most or the one that's the most severely damaging? What do you think? Yeah, right?
The most damaging myth. That's a really good question. I have to think about that for a sec. I mean, my immediate thought is the one we were just talking about, where, if we're talking about like losing weight, it's the one that the calories in, calories out denial, again, because it somewhere along the line became like a controversial thing to say, when literally it's just the only way to lose weight. I feel like there's other good ones too, but that's the one that comes to mind off the top of my head. How about you? Do you have any other good ones?
You don't want to get me started, man. I mean, there's
a lot.
I will tell you this. I would say I love the one you're mentioning, the calories in, calories out being bad now. But I would say one of the greatest myths to me is honestly scale weight, is going back to scale weight or BMI, which is really just scale weight, because your height isn't going to change once you're grown. So BMI and scale weight to me are equally damaging. They're giving people the wrong idea. And to go with that, because I'd put this all into one big myth, is that people can come up with their own idea of what their ideal weight should be, because it's not about ideal weight, it's about ideal body composition. And this I'm showing a bit about where my focus has been a lot in my career, but in terms of longevity and in terms of better health outcomes, we really do best when our body composition's low. It's not about being overweight, it's about being over fat. And I wish that people could get a better handle on understanding it's really not about how much fat you have on you, it's about how much muscle to fat, what the ratio is. So let's say you have 20 pounds more fat on you right now. You could lose that 20 pounds, or you could theoretically, and this is a wide example, but you could just gain enough muscle to counter that out. Depending on your gender, it could be like 10, 12, 15 pounds. But you actually be more than that, but you need to gain enough muscle. You could leave the fat on, and that way the ratio would be healthy. And especially now with some of the data that's come out these past few years. See, I told you didn't want to ask this, but with some of the data,
That's a good point. Yeah.
there's a lot I can chase down that road of it's really just about what's the ratio like. And if the ratio is strong, your body will eat up and prevent disease, and you will have high energy and everything else. So I think a lot of times people don't realize when they say I'm going to lose 20 pounds, they don't realize they're not losing 20 pounds of fat very often at all. They're losing like 10 pounds of fat, some water weight, some muscle, sometimes even bone, which is not very heavy in your body, but you'll lose just a little bit of bone mineral density from all the starvation things that people are doing. And that's really damaging. So that's probably my biggest guttural kind of hot button is the myth over just look at the scale and look at your BMI and get it right, because I feel like that can do easily as much harm as it can good.
I was about to say that I liked your example. And another example I was thinking of while you were saying it is the protein myth example, where if you eat anything more than like a moderate amount of protein, it's going to destroy your kidneys and your intestines and things. And I'm usually trying to get my clients to eat more protein, because I know if they eat more protein, they're going to be full more often throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's just one of those myths that it's really hard to get people past that at the beginning. I don't know. What do you think? Have you dealt with that one yourself?
Yeah. I'll tell you with the protein, it's funny. I tell people this. Here's the only way I get people who feel that way, like what you described, where they're afraid they're going to do a lot of damage. I explain, like you said, that protein will help you be more full. And I tell you, protein and dietary fat, when put in the right macronutrient ratio, and there's a lot of different ratios different people need, but when you find the right one for them, they're full all day long, or at least they're comfortable all day long. And you don't end up needing that ice cream before bed, because even though ice cream might taste good, if you're full, you're full, right? If you're not hungry, you go, yeah, it tastes good, but I don't need it right now. We become ravenous when we go to the fridge when we're a combination of missing something sweet and also hungry. And I think you can deplete both of those. You can remove both cravings, or both components to a craving, by just having the right protein and dietary fat throughout the day. And in fact, there's a lot of data that says that the reason why we're so hungry as people is because we're not reaching enough protein levels. And therefore the body knows that, hey, I need more protein if I'm going to sustain myself and really be strong. And so it might be something of a survival instinct and of a health instinct to want to keep being hungry just to seek out more and more protein.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I've certainly seen that with my clients, the ones who are willing to just eat a little bit more protein. Mm-hmm. They're able to eat less throughout the day. It certainly helps to keep their appetite in check. I would say the same thing with dietary fat as well. I'm just usually trying to work on the protein more, because obviously when they're seeing me, they're seeing me during a resistance training session, usually 2 to 3 per week. So protein is usually my bigger focus for that reason. But I certainly encourage some, extra dietary fat if it's coming from the right sources too.
Yeah, it's a really important thing. And I think, no matter what, all these myths that we're talking about all boil down to the same one thing, really. And that's, like you said, misinformation.
Yeah.
People get, and like you said earlier too, people get latched on to certain beliefs. And I kind of feel like it's whichever belief gets there first. So if I learned, if I learned something in first grade, I want to hold on to it tightly. If I just learned something this morning, I'm not so emotionally attached to it. But if I learned it long ago, I keep reinforcing it over the years. And so that's where for everybody watching this video, I think Jeff and I are in agreement that one of the best things you can do is to not be afraid to unlearn what you've learned, especially if maybe life's not working out as well for you in terms of fitness and health as you want it to. You know, that's another thing, is that a lot of people have very bad health outcomes. They're on multiple drugs. They're having surgeries for all these injuries, and they're still emotionally connected to the way they've been eating and exercising. And I often have to say to them, look, let's be honest, your decisions so far haven't led you down a good road. So if you've got a series of injuries that you're dealing with and that you're not recovered from, and if you've had a weight problem and things like that, like maybe it's time to throw away what you're so connected to and to start fresh. And that's probably what I think most people they lack, that disconnect to be able to say, what I'm doing isn't working, let's reinvent myself.
Yeah, I think that takes a lot of I guess effort. It takes a lot of things, courage, to admit that you're wrong, and then to completely change your game plan. It's a lot of work. So yeah, I think so. But definitely, yeah, if what you're doing is not working, you got to be ready to change it up, right? That's the definition of insanity, right? I believe so.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Doing the same, bashing your head, doing the same thing over and over.
If it doesn't work, you keep trying to get a different outcome or something like that. Whatever. Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I feel like there's lots of insanity when it comes to health, fitness, and nutrition. But it's because there's money to be made in tricking people into believing things that aren't true.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Would you say, here's an interesting question before we wrap up here. Do you think there's more good advice out there or more bad advice out there from fitness professionals?
Ooh.
Yeah.
I think it's very close. I think it's 50-50, like right about as close as it could be. But I think the bad information gets picked up more. So people like the bad information. The bad information is more sexy and cool, and it's what people want to hear. So even though there's probably just as much good information, it just gets buried. And I've certainly felt that at times, even with our YouTube channel, which, we get some traction for sure. People are starting to kind of know who we are if they're trying to better themselves as trainers. But it still feels like an uphill battle, just saying things that are, true, proven by science, instead of something that's a little more seductive and easy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think more and more, again, I've been doing this a long, long time now. And at least when I first was coming up in the industry, there wasn't as much bro science out there. There wasn't as much gossip kind of fitness advice. Again, no one had platforms for that. There wasn't a YouTube or anything like that back then. Now that there is all that, on one hand, you got brilliant people online. Like, again, you got a great channel. I think Jeff Cavalier's got an amazing channel as well.
Yep.
There's so much good information. So on one hand, it's really nice with the advent of all this technology. On the other hand, it gives people a platform who are really just putting out some terrible, terrible notions. And so I think that, yeah, I hear you. It's close. So it's almost like a flip of a coin.
Yeah, I mean, who has a bigger following, Jeff Cavalier or Chloe Ting? I don't know. I know probably Chloe, to be honest with you. And he's been doing it like 5 times longer, if not even longer than that, than she has. But I think she still has more followers than he does. And he works far harder on his information. It's all good information as far as I've seen. I've been a fan of Athlean X for a long time. But yeah, she still, I think, probably has a bigger following, or at the very least, they're close, because she's spewing nonsense that's popular. It's easy. It's easier, right? And he's just telling you the truth. So it is what it is. That's the state of the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. What a good point. Well, that's great, Jeff. So any thoughts you want to leave us on? Anything about your channel or anything at all that you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Well, first of all, thanks for reaching out and thanks for interviewing. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to check out my channel, it's Sorta Healthy. And again, mainly what we're focusing on now is educating other personal trainers. We may branch out at some point. We may try other things. But if we start doing other things, it's probably going to be on a separate channel. We'll probably just keep this one dedicated to trainer education. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We have a podcast too, the Sorta Healthy podcast. And, we also have an Instagram, the Sorta Healthy Couple, because I run my studio business right here with my wife. And she does help out with the Sorta Healthy trainer education videos as well. But yeah, that's all the spots you can find us. And thanks for having me.
Thanks again, Jeff. We really appreciate having you here today.
Thanks, man. Take care. And, if you want to stay in touch or interview me again at some point, I'm always open to it.
Would love to do that. Let's definitely be in touch again soon.